I think most people now understand that the corporate tax burden is not paid by corporations. It's paid by their workers in lower wages and fewer jobs. It's paid by consumers in higher prices. And it's paid by retirees who are trying to put away a little money to invest for their retirement future.
You're watching Restoring America, where we shine a light on the fundamental values of this country and all the reasons why they're worth saving. This week, we're going to talk about taxes, specifically how yours might go up if Congress doesn't take action. I'm Kaylee McGee-White, and this is Restoring America. One of former President Donald Trump's signature accomplishments was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, passed in 2017. Several key provisions in that legislation are set to expire next year, unless lawmakers can agree to extend those benefits. And those benefits are undeniable. It's estimated that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provided a tax break to 80% of Americans, with middle-class families experiencing the most relief. And if the law is allowed to expire, the Tax Foundation estimates that a family of four making a median household income of $75,000 per year will face an estimated tax increase of more than $1,500 per year. That adds up quick, especially in this economy. Unfortunately, it's not at all clear whether lawmakers will be able to reach some sort of agreement on this issue. Democrats, including Vice President Kamala Harris, have written off the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act as a break for billionaires, which certainly seems to suggest they're not very motivated to keep it on the books. So where do we go from here? My guest today is going to help us break down this debate. But before we get to him, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and for more, head to washingtonexaminer.com. With me today is Senator Mike Crapo, a senator for Idaho and the ranking member on the Senate Finance Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. You wrote an op-ed for the Washington Examiner about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and how several key provisions in that bill are going to expire next year. What are some of those key provisions that have been most helpful for American families?
I think that the answer to that question is in three parts. First is, what did we do for people who make basically under $400,000 a year, those in the lower and middle income categories? And it was very significant rate protection of their tax rates. We reduced their tax rates and reduced them at a higher rate than any other sector of the tax code. We doubled the standard deduction so that people who used to have to itemize now don't have to go through all of that and actually get a larger deduction. And 9 out of 10 Americans are taking advantage of that doubled deduction. And we also doubled the child tax credit. And by doubling the child tax credit, which many people don't realize was something that the Republicans themselves put into law in the 1990s, we were able to reduce even additional rate structure for that middle income category and basically your middle class American family. That's the first piece of what we did. The second thing we did was to give a huge boost to jobs and all kinds of other parts of the economy that helped them. And the key to that was basically the small business tax deduction, what's been called the pass-through deduction. That deduction reduced the average tax rate for a small business in the United States from 37% to 29.6%, I think. But the key thing there is 95% of the businesses in America are small businesses, and 60% of the employees of business in America are employees of small businesses. And what they saw was higher wages. There was more basic capacity for the consumer to get goods at lower prices, and growth in the economy and the number of jobs available in the economy. And then finally, you might be surprised by this piece of it, but we reduced the corporate tax rate. And you might say, well, how does reducing the corporate tax rate help middle class families? I think most people now understand that the corporate tax burden is not paid by corporations. It's paid by their workers in lower wages and fewer jobs. It's paid by consumers in higher prices. And it's paid by retirees who are trying to put away a little money to invest for their retirement future. And all of that was boosted by us reducing that corporate rate and generating the kind of economic growth that this tax code generated.
And that's such an important point, because one of the biggest obstacles to extending some of these provisions right now is the Democratic Party, specifically Democrats like Kamala Harris, who have argued that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is just a tax cut for billionaires. Are they right about that, or are they wrong?
No, they're absolutely wrong about that. And it's amazing to me that they still say it and that some news media outlets still report it. The bottom line is that the largest percentage of rate reduction in the code, everybody in the code got a rate reduction, but the largest percentage went to those in smaller and middle class income categories. The top 1% actually ended up paying more of the total federal tax burden than they did before we passed the act. And I think that you can put some numbers to this. CBO, or joint tax, is now scoring this bill, if it expires, as being a $4.1 trillion tax increase. Who will that tax increase fall on? Well, if Kamala Harris is right and it's the rich people who got a tax cut, then it would fall on them. But the reality is $2.2 trillion of that $4.1 trillion tax increase falls on people making less than $400,000. And if you throw in the small businesses, $3.3 trillion of the entire $4 trillion tax bill will fall on people and businesses under $400,000.
Now, you argue in your op-ed that this would amount to the largest tax increase in U.S. history, and it certainly seems that way. And especially in light of mounting economic concerns where hardworking Americans are already feeling the squeeze. What is your commitment to helping them and helping provide some relief moving forward?
Well, my commitment, and I think that of all of my colleagues on the Republican side on the Finance Committee, is to do our level best to extend the existing tax policy that I've just described. Because by extending it, we will not only achieve protecting those rates and those deductions and protections that I described, but we will help achieve what happened in the economy when we did pass it in 2017. And just a quick reminder of that, hundreds of billions of dollars came from overseas to come back to the United States to be invested. Corporate inversions ended, and corporations started coming back to America to do business. Jobs exploded. We had the lowest unemployment rate in generations. Jobs increased. The number of jobs increased, and the average wage went up to record highs. We saw the average family income grow by $5,000 across this nation. The inflation rate was down at around 2%, and the unemployment rate was down at record lows around 4%. Those are the kinds of things that I commit to helping continue as we eliminate the pressures for all of this excessive spending, and particularly avoid that $4.1 trillion tax increase that, no matter what Kamala Harris says, is going to fall squarely on the backs of the middle class.
Absolutely. Well, it's such an important issue. Thank you very much for joining us to talk about it some more. And for more exclusive interviews, breaking news, and conservative views, be sure to check out washingtonexaminer.com.